Hello, as always, I am Cosmic, and today we're going to be reviewing action RPG Victor Vran, which was developed by Hemimont Games. Now, Hemimont themselves are a Bulgarian developer who have worked on titles such as Tropico 5, Omerta City of Gangsters, and now have developed Victor Vran through Steam's Early Access program. Now, I took a look at the game way back in early access and praised many of its elements. So finally the game has now fully released, so let's get down to it. Victor Vran is set in a gothic fantasy universe where you essentially play a demon hunter. The setting has a strong Van Helsing mixed with the Witcher theme that runs throughout the game. In essence, Victor Vran is an isometric ARPG that focuses on player skill as well as item stats. Your ability to dodge, roll and jump out of the way of attacks is as important as the damage stat of your weapon. The game's controls work well both on a controller and mouse and keyboard. I personally found the controller most enjoyable because the controller scheme is almost flawless, and the experience with the thumbsticks for 360-degree movement really does help not only with movement, but it helps you dodge more effectively. The major addition to the game in the full version since early access is the addition of the main single-player story. The game is packed with humour, and it doesn't take its setting or its story or indeed any part of itself particularly seriously. The voice of the main character will be instantly recognised as Doug Cockle, who is the voice actor who also voices The Witcher's Geralt of Rivia. The game doesn't hide this fact, with lines making references to The Witcher and Vran himself sounding exactly like the other monster hunter in an overtly silly ways. It just sounds exactly like Geralt of Rivia, and he even has lines such as, I made a mistake one time during a hunt and now I have this scar on my face. It makes reference, it knows what it is, it's very, very silly, and it doesn't hide the fact, which is nice. The game's humour is a nice touch, and it works very well in some places. The voice acting is all done well, even the intentionally cheesy elements. The star of the show, however, is the voice inside Victor Vran's head, who acts as a narrator in everything that you do, and he will comment on what you're doing. The narrator is a blend of the narrator from Bastion in terms of he comments on the things you're doing, but he's got the personality of the Borderlands 2 villain Handsome Jack. It really does provide a dark humour to all the narration. For example, he often teases Victor throughout. Instead of calling him Victor, he calls him Vicky, and he tries to lure him into traps very regularly, and says, you're going the wrong way when you're going the right way. It's all quite hilarious, and it's kind of a touch of dark humour in there, which is really, really nice. The game's controls are simple and fluid, and they work very well. Your character can have up to 2 weapons equipped at any one time, and can seamlessly switch in between the two even during combat. Each weapon type has its own abilities that vary in their effect. Shotguns, for example, have pushback AoE abilities, whereas lightning guns have chain damage effects. The combat will appeal to hack and slash fans, and the overall fluidity and speed of the attacks, mixed with the ability to roll and get out of the way and be constantly on the move, is very simple, but it does create a very fun experience. It's nice to have an ARPG that allows you to jump and perform aerial to ground attacks. In fact, this jumping mechanic is incorporated into the level design, particularly in the finding of secret areas and loot. The freedom of movement in the game is fun, and while some spells and weapons do require you to be rooted for a time, for the most part, you are always constantly on the move, which does keep you a lot more engaged. The game's combat, for the most part, is a satisfying endeavour. Vran will have a selection of powerful spells known as demon powers that can be used at the cost of your overdrive meter. You can only equip a few of these spells at any one time, but you can keep others in your inventory so you can switch them out whenever you please. There are a variety of demon powers, such as an AoE meteor storm, a magical shield, or a health replenishing vampiric aura. Demon spells are very useful for getting out of tight situations. Me personally, I would have liked a more engaging magic system that didn't require you to use your other weapons. Essentially, I would like a system where you could have had a character just be a magic user, It is a minor complaint, but there it is. The mix of ranged and melee weapons is good, and switching seamlessly in combat is very useful for switching tactics when you're encountering several different types of enemies. The visual audio feedback of the combat is also fairly satisfying. Huge hammer blows look and feel powerful. The combat does, however, have the hack and slash flaw of being repetitive, which is actually kind of increased by its simplistic design. This inbuilt repetitiveness is somewhat dampened by the large number of enemies that there are and their varying tactics. The sheer amount of enemy variety, each with their own attacks, does keep the game fresh as possible in the genre. Boss battles in particular do have unique mechanics and present a fairly good challenge. Often they will test your skill, and particularly on harder difficulties, some will be a tremendous challenge. However, some enemy mechanics can be somewhat time consuming and a little bit frustrating, such as undead enemies who will keep resurrecting until they are killed with an overkill hit. It's a minor complaint again, but it's something that you do encounter quite frequently, and it just it kind of starts to grate on you a little bit. I think for me personally, what I would have liked from the combat, and I think what would make the combat more interesting, would have been some sort of upgradable combo system. Whether it be having combos that use current abilities or even multi-weapon combos, I feel that a combo system would have stopped the traditional repetitiveness of the combat somewhat, and it would have also added more depth to the overall progression of the game. The level design of the game is very well created, and each area of the game looks not only great visually, but it remains unique with some really memorable locales. Each area and subsequent dungeon have main objectives and side challenges, which make the game much more interesting. The game implements a hex system whereby you can turn on and off a hex, which will essentially have an effect on something such as enemy damage. Area challenges often incorporate hexes. For example, one dungeon I went into asked me to turn on the hex that would continually drain my health. These hexes do add a good amount of difficulty and fun to the game. Hex challenges stop the game from kind of getting stale in certain parts, and they do allow you to reap great rewards for the risk, including loot, gold and experience. So let's get on to character progression. Now, character progression in Victor Vran is fairly straightforward, and it sadly does not leave much up to the player. As you level up, you'll of course get stronger. However, any and all statistical changes are automatic, and you have no real depth in the customization as you gain levels. What you do have control over is something called destiny cards, which are essentially cards that you can equip on the inventory screen that have different statistical effects, such as plus 300 health or plus 30% damage with swords, etc, etc. You can only equip a couple of destiny cards at a time, and you do get them from both leveling up and from looting. The rarer destiny cards will have more powerful effects, and they usually do drop from bosses or champion monsters. Leveling up will grant you the choice of items such as destiny cards, weapons, demon powers, or sometimes mystery boxes that will contain loot, and later on as you level up, if you gather enough mystery boxes, you can use transmutation to actually combine the boxes, and then the boxes will drop significantly more rarer loot. Visually, the game is very pleasing. Everything from the character models to level detail is vibrant to look at. The art style that the developers went for has allowed everything from spell effects to lighting to look really colourful and good. Each environment has kind of a dark gothic theme, which vividly contrasts with the bursts of light colours from spell effects, which all looks very good. There's very little to complain about visually, and while the occasional wall does clip, the visuals do provide a good immersive experience. The soundtrack to the game provides some good dark, tense atmosphere, and it's pretty well produced alongside the voice acting and the various sound effects. Now, one thing that the game does have is online co-op. Online co-op is featured and it is a huge benefit to the game. ARPGs in general are one of the only genres where co-op modes not only work well, but they can provide huge benefits. And Victor Vran's online mode works really well. With the fast-paced combat, it can be a lot of fun playing online with others. It's certainly one of those games that's both good in short bursts and in long play sessions. It's a game that keeps you engaged throughout. Overall, the core mechanics of the game, while simplistic, are very fun and addictive. And it just goes to show that a game doesn't need to be overly complex to have large amounts of both playability and fun. The action RPG genre is a very popular genre, but there's very few massive hits out there, and even fewer with a high standard of quality in all aspects of the game. Victor Vran is one of those rare games. It has quality and it has quantity. The story is well written, packed with humour and irony, designed to poke fun at itself and various fantasy games. And overall, it is just a solid action RPG that can just be enjoyed on the face value of it. And that is my Victor Vran review. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment. Please share the video around and I'll see you next time.